Shoes gone everywhere. All hands on the night with the starry sky.
My body was so happy exploring the tension exercise. I love how tension feels in my body. Why, I asked myself. I decided it is probably because I also love working out and resistance training. Resistance with space, that's what it is. However, reflectively, I think it feels better than it looks. This clip also makes me see how I really like line and angular shapes. In my studio work, I also found tension to be a place of creation for movement, because if I took a movement to the extreme, like in Christina's class, it had so much tension it had to ultimately release and take my body somewhere else. I just had to be open, aware, and let my body take me to new places. This next phrase came out of the spatial pathways, spatial projections, traces, space inside the body, and the lob-on points exercise. In general, I was very inspired by David Parsons and his movement style. But the thing that really stuck with me the most about his class, well, besides relax, were his hands. They say so much. So I also wanted to bring that into the studio, along with always trying to move in new ways, to never let myself do what I know I love to do already. I found it helpful to break down the thought behind each movement. Was it a projection, a trace? Was I using the space? What points am I utilizing? However, reflectively, I found elements of all of these in each of my movements. The steps between the steps. This was right after my meeting with Christina. I had figured out by this point that everything I do is big. There are no in-betweens. I also quickly saw in my reflective practice that I had forgotten altogether that I have a back to create with. We talked through how tied to the music I am. I find that the music always tells the story and tells me what to do. So we decided my job is to develop a method for layering in order to keep movement alive and reactive. I am now on a quest to figure out what is underneath, above, and in between the musical notes that can release me to that lived state so ultimately I can go beyond the music. At this point in my time here, what released me to that place were character choices, temptations, imagery, storyline, and relationships. I had a mini story in between each movement. We decided that that could be a method. However, now I realize that I have to go beyond that and think more aesthetically to really challenge myself here. After sifting through hours of footage, this last section made the cut because it feels like all my adolescence tied into one phrase. Just like the exercise we did with Anna, I wanted to play with all the movements I had created and try to put them together in a fashion that made sense. I caught myself several times thinking, what should come next? I was adding more instead of exploring what I already had. That was huge to realize about my practice. I also gave myself a condition, the physical state of being stuck, which was very effective when looking back at the footage. This dance was originally done to music with words in the studio, but I noticed that because I applied a condition to the movement, it didn't look literal or narrative to me, which can definitely inform my narrative musical theater choreography. I was also just proud of myself for finally using different orientations besides audience front. I also can just see that my body is starting to move differently because in some way, shape, or form, it has been absorbing knowledge here, even when I'm not so sure my brain did. As our time here this summer comes to an end, I realize that with confusion comes clarity, and with tiny bits of clarity, more confusion arises. And I think that's the point of being a thinker. My thoughts, or lack of thoughts for that matter, about what I am so passionate about have been garbled up and just not spit back out yet, and I will just have to learn to be okay with that. I know now for sure what I stated 8 months ago in my artistic statement, that I must explore dance that is non-narrative and is aesthetic-based. Then and only then will I have filled in the gaps that I missed along the way. I will truly inform my methodology. It will bring so many layers to my musical theater choreography, and I will know which tools to use when. Then, finally, be able to decide for myself once and for all if aesthetic-based dance and narrative dance, musical theater dance to me, are similar, are totally different, or if they truly are just simply one in the same.